Welcome to the Tank Podcast. In this week's episode, anthropologist Sine Plambech reads from her book Global Sex, which analyzes how sex work connects to global economic systems and migration patterns.
We talk about personal topics a lot, but this, sitting on a step in the rain, eating Vivian's Nigerian food, and hearing her talk about the 2 kids she had to leave behind, and about her dead baby, is more personal than before. Thank you for sharing all of that with me, I say, at loss for words. You have been through a lot for your children, and you have lost a lot. Now we are not just friends, she says, but sisters. I have never sat with a white woman like this before, in the rain, talking about my life. Vivian knew that she was going to be a sex worker in Libya. Sex was what she had to sell to finance her trip from Nigeria. Sex work was a means to an end, reaching Europe. She made a deal with her old friend's cousin, Tony, that she would pay him 550,000 naira for the journey to Libya by selling sex there. When she had paid it off, she would be free to keep going and cross the sea to Italy. I trafficked myself to Libya, she said, but my trip to Italy was not trafficking. Vivian left, just like Becky, to drive through the Sahara Desert in the back of a pickup truck. She was with other women that Tony had made deals with. The trip was rather easy in contrast to Becky's. Tony wanted to be sure to receive the money coming to him, so the women had to arrive safe and ready to work. He wouldn't earn anything on dead women. That's why he provided a truck that wouldn't break down, hired smugglers who knew the route well, and paid bribes so they could cross the borders and checkpoints with his goods. Vivian and the other women were installed in an apartment in a 1-story building on a quiet street in a little coastal town on the Mediterranean. A Nigerian couple managed a discreet brothel there and ensured everything went smoothly. They only had a few women in the house who were not allowed to leave for fear of being discovered. The clients came and went quietly. In this way, they would avoid attention from the Libyan police. Vivian lived there in the connection house, as she called it, with other Nigerian women who sold sex to pay for the trip to Libya, just like her. Afterwards, the plan was to raise more money to pay for smugglers to get them across the sea to Italy. Some of Vivian's clients were Libyan men, but most of them were migrants themselves from Gambia, Ghana, Senegal, and Ivory Coast. They were either men who, like her, saw Libya as a stopover on the way to Europe, or they considered Libya their final destination and were hired laborers hoping for more work in the wake of the fall of Gaddafi. I tried to figure out more precisely where in Libya Vivian's brothel was located. She calls one of the women who worked there with her, because she has forgotten what the town was called. Tadjoura, she tells me. That was where I lived. That's where the brothel was. While writing this book, I realized that name sounds familiar for another reason, so I Googled it. Tadjoura is 23 kilometers east of Tripoli on the coast. It is also the front line for rival Libyan factions, a place where one faction dropped a bomb on an overfilled detention center and killed 52 migrants who was being held there in 2019. In the city, there's a large cemetery, surrounded by cliffs and trees for the drowned migrants who wash up on the beach and are buried with a number instead of a name. This is why I had heard about this place before. This was not just a quiet little town. Vivian's brothel was in one of the most talked about migration cities in Libya. The men who visited the brothel could choose short-time sex, an hour, for $2 to $5 depending on the service, or long-time sex, a whole night for $15. Vivian had mostly short-term clients, 1 or 2 per day. How did you feel about the work? I asked. I didn't like it, not at all. It didn't seem right for me, but I didn't have a choice. I had nothing else to offer, and I had sworn to pay back Tony when I made it to Libya. That's why I say I was trafficked to Libya, but not against my will. And I had given Tony some hair I cut off from my head, my armpits, and down low. So if I didn't pay him back, I was afraid that Ayalala would punish me. That is a spirit who can possess things, so you could get hit by a scooter that Ayalala possessed. My uncle is an Ayalala priest. That's common in Benin City. I tell Vivian about the last time I was in Nigeria, when Becky and Chika took me to visit an Ayalala temple. The female witch doctor, as she called herself, showed us several objects she used in her ceremonies: snakeskin, dried bird corpses, and a stone about the size of a fist, which she said that Ayalala could drop from the sky to kill someone who had sinned. The priest explained that Ayalala is a god of justice. According to the legend, she was an enslaved woman who was going to be sacrificed in an adultery case. But just before she was to be killed, she yelled out, "Ayalala, the world is terrible." Yes, says Vivian, nodding. We call on Ayalala when we need truth and justice, because she punishes lies and dishonesty. The difference between God and Ayalala is that you might have to wait a long time for God to do something, but Ayalala can bring punishment immediately. But anyway, after coming to Italy, I don't believe in Ayalala anymore. I read the Bible here and I've been to church, and I know that you can only have one God. A bit apologetically, she adds, so I don't believe in anything except God.
To hear more podcasts from Tank, you can subscribe on all major podcast platforms or follow us on SoundCloud. The theme music for this podcast is by Himera.